So we're gonna do roll call here. Member Baldwin Day. Present. Blaze.
Present.
Frank.
Present.
Member Boland. Member Boland currently absent.
Member Boland says he will be here in 2 minutes
Okay,
via Teams. Okay, he'll be joining.
all right, thank you. So we do have quorum. Aaron, can you do a public involvement announcement?
Yes, welcome to the AMATS Policy Committee meeting. This special meeting, we have public comments are welcome and encouraged with 3 minutes given to each speaker. After the committee discusses each item, members of the public are invited to comment. Housekeeping items for virtual attendees, please turn your cameras off unless you're speaking. For those attending by phone, please press *6 to mute or unmute yourself. And as a reminder, AMATS committee meetings are audio recorded and posted on the AMATS YouTube page. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So
I have managed to break my laptop or my iPad. Sorry.
okay,
I don't know what happened. It timed out and now it's
we do a brief recess.
apologies.
Where's the 618? Okay,
Oh, got it.
There you go.
Okay.
so it's just the same stuff there. So then
Okay,
you just go ahead and
Lovely.
click
All
on
right.
each item and you can scroll.
And we're back. Okay, sorry about that.
And we're back. So we have, the next item is approval of the agenda. This agenda is simple. There's just one item on it, and that's to go over the transportation plan, the MTP for 2052, in which we have several sub items as project lists. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I moved.
Any discussion on this? Any changes? All right, so if no objections, the agenda is approved. So with that, there are no previous meeting minutes because this is a special session. We'll hold those for the next official policy committee meeting. For action items then, this is number 5. And Mr. Young and Ellen, will you be going through the item brief?
Yes, I will. Rhiannon Brown is home, not feeling well today, but she is online if we have any questions for her. So I will do the best I can. So as a reminder, at the last policy committee meeting, this item came before you. This is for the 2052 MTP project list and fiscal constraint analysis, or the revenue assumptions, but really the fiscal analysis is kind of part of that. The technical advisory committee reviewed it and had a number of changes that they recommended, mostly to add in the Seward to Glen PEL projects. As you can see at the top, some consolidation of projects, removing of duplication projects as well, updating terminize. There was a project increase for the Seward Highway Diamond O'Malley project. There was an increase request in there for the traffic control signalization project to add some additional money per year for additional staff, a new position for the Muni. That one, as a reminder, staff needs direction on where the funding should come from, as we are fiscally constrained for the AMATS funding, so there's no funding available for that. It's a total about $4.2 million over the life of the MTP. And then the TAC recommended including the Safer Seward Highway with a placeholder of projects and the fiscal analysis from DOT to follow. Before you, that fiscal analysis is printed off, so you can see it. I apologize, we did not post it on the agenda. That was my mistake. And then on the non-motorized, there were some changes as well. Removal of duplication projects for the transit centers, the mixed hubs from Muldoon downtown. This is just a duplication. They are in the complete streets list, but they're showing them both non-motorized and complete streets. So we're moving them from non-motorized, so they're just in the complete streets list. Also updating some termini for the Hyder pedestrian project and adding in the Hyder, the rest of the Hyder pedestrian boulevard project. And then moving some projects out from the short term into the long term and then the long term into the not programmed. There were some changes for transit projects, removing of duplication of projects, and then some Alaska Railroad Corporation project updates. So that's what was brought to you for the TAC. At the June 18th meeting, the policy committee moved to table this item until a special meeting today to give members more time to review the recommendations. Additionally, staff was asked to meet with the Fairview Community Council and the Reconnecting Fairview group regarding the Hyder Pedestrian Boulevard project. We did meet with that project and the DOT project team member, the project manager, sorry. And then it had updated project information based on the termini there. What came out of it is that everybody was in agreement that there's 4 separate phases of the project and what those phases are. I'll go through those really quickly. The first was to update the termini in the AMATS funded that's in the tip right now to be 15th to 8th Avenue with specific verbiage to include crossing work at the intersections of Hyder and 9th Avenue. There's the Chester Creek to 15th Avenue, so the southern portion. Then there's the 8th to 3rd Avenue, so this is back at the northern portion, and then the 3rd to Ship Creek. So previously there were 4 recommended for the TAC. After discussion with everybody, everybody felt comfortable having those 4, just updating the termini and then updating the project costs, as you see there. And then there was one other change that was recommended, removing the line 49, just a second as I go to what the project name is. Sorry. It's the Fairview Greenway Phase 1. So we're recommending removal of that because it is a duplication with the Hyder projects. It's basically that southern portion or part of that southern portion of Chester Creek to 15th Avenue. It would be a duplication to have it in there. So staff's recommending removing that, and that'll free up about 11 million in the short term for non-motorized funding.
We rolled 3 feet. Did member Bolin see able to join? When he does, can you just notify me and we can put it on the record? Thank you.
I'm sorry, Chair, did you ask if I'm here?
Oh,
I
yes,
am
thank
logged in.
you.
Yep,
Okay, just
you bet.
for the record, just let that be noted.
Oh, he's on a phone number, not his name.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
So looking at it, with the changes, so removing of that duplication project, line 49, the total cost of the Hyder Pedestrian Boulevard project is roughly $33.5 million. There's about 17 million available in non-motorized funding. So about 16.5 million will still need to be shifted to accommodate those Hyder projects in the non-motorized list. So that's part of what we need from you today, is what projects should shift to free up room for those Hyder projects. So this is before you today, and I'm happy to help answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Any questions, comments from the committee on that brief specifically? I know we have a lot to go over.
I'll just say thank you for meeting with the Fairview folks. Much appreciated.
Of course, thank you.
In the materials, you'd also prepared project approval timeline or for the MTP itself. Could you walk us through that as well?
Yeah, so this is as best a guess we can of where we're at with the current timeline for the project. So of course, we are doing the project list approval right now and the modeling work that needs to be done. So the plan originally was to have this back before you in August for review to release for the public, August 6th for the TDC and August 20th for the policy committee, and then have our public comment period in September, October timeframe. Then bring it back to you all in November for kind of final review, any changes, that kind of stuff, and then final approval in December. I'll say where we're at right now, we're probably delayed a little from this timeline that you see in front of you. We haven't updated it from what you see. This is kind of our best guess at the time, but we don't know what our plan is today. If we get approval of everything today, we're going to do our best to stick to this timeline as best as possible. And hopefully have all the modeling and everything ready for you in August and bring that back for your review before it's released, to ask for release for public. If we have any delays from today, then we'll probably have a delay on when we're going to be bringing it back to you all. Probably to September is when we would have, depending on how much of a delay today, if there is any. So just keep that in mind that this schedule is just if we get everything approved today. Thank you. And by everything, I mean the project list and the fiscal assumptions to be put in the document to bring back for your review before it's released for the public.
Okay, thank you. And as another follow-up, just as it's pertinent to the timeline, could you please offer an update and of the meeting that was recently held with the Federal Highways Administrator, which is a great opportunity to showcase the successes that AMATS has had and the work in the MPA. And yeah, anything relevant to the timeline, it could be good to offer context based on our last meeting and the questions we had.
So there was a meeting that was put together that I was invited to. That was with the FHWA Administrator, Sean McMaster, and then it had additional individuals there. Catherine Keith was there, Aaron Baldwin Day was there. We had some representatives or staff member from the senators, I think both. It was Murkowski, Sullivan, I think Begich had staff there as well. It was a big group of people. Some FHWA folks were there. It was a rather large group. We sat down and talked about kind of some wins in our area, what's been going well. We did have a discussion with the boundary. And based on my view, the real crux of it is FHWA will support us in our efforts, but they're really looking to us to figure out the concerns with the boundary. However, it did come up at that meeting, the possibility, there was a request from Deputy Commissioner Keith, a possibility of an extension for the requirements of our boundary and MTP update. And I think there was support from that from FHWA as long as we're showing a good faith effort in moving forward. So if there are delays from today, I'll let you know, we probably will make our December timeline. And so we'll probably have to put a request in, however that goes, to ask for an extension. And we'll need to figure out how much time we're going to for the boundary and the operating or boundary and the whatever we're working on today, the MTP. I will let you know the Technical Advisory Committee did recommend a work session on the boundary. There's a lot to go over, and I think they felt that best to start with what we all agree on. Say this is everything that we all agree for the boundary, and then what we're having disagreements on, and work through that and try and get to a resolution as quick as possible. I will let you know that that will delay us a little for the boundary. We won't be able to have a work session until basically early August at this point, just with timing and getting everybody's schedules aligned. And so we'll be a little bit behind there. I will let you know that the boundary, it's fine that we're still working on the boundary. We can still continue to work on the MTP as there's really no projects or very few projects that are impacted by the boundary because the boundary payments are relatively small. But that depends on what the policy committee does for the boundary, if they make big sweeping changes or small little changes to what is already out there. So I can help answer any questions that you have on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I do want to say thanks to Mr. Young. He did a fantastic job presenting to the administrator, and it was a very large room of high-level official people, and you did an excellent job speaking to the successes and also the challenges that we're all working through. So it was well presented and handled. So one of the takeaways was to provide an update back to both our state district, Federal Highways Administrator, as well as our regional administrator, that's Elise Canova, and update her on the timelines in which we find ourselves in for both the boundary and the MTP. And then that way she can help work with us if we need to request some sort of support or extension they were willing to offer. Was any other comments on that?
I actually had a clarifying question. There was just a brief moment during that meeting where Mr. Young indicated that we would need some clarification or some direction to staff if we were going to ask AMAT staff to do additional work on the boundary question in particular. So I just wanted to flag that for the committee that it sounds like we need to make some explicit direction if we're going to invite staff to do additional work on this particular question. And I didn't want that to escape notice. So.
Yeah, that's correct. I'll clarify on that, just so you're all, where we come from as staff is we have a boundary that's been approved by the policy committee. And so we don't have anything else to do at this point, unless you guys direct us otherwise. So if there are things that you would like us to do, research, development of X, Y, and Z changes, whatever, we would need explicit direction from you guys on what that is and that you want us to go ahead and spend time doing that. I'm not going to make an assumption. I'll need direction from you all on what you want done.
So it would be a motion perhaps if we chose to take that up to offer that to coordinate and collaborate with DOT staff or on basically on materials for the TAC or the work session would be the suggestion. Do we want to bring that up at this time or wait until after the meeting?
That would be the next policy committee meeting. This one is really for the MTP. Yeah, there's an action item for the boundary on the next policy committee meeting. I would recommend that. That would be a good time to do that then.
For the sake of time, because of an early August work session, I do believe we can make a motion just briefly on this topic without waiting for another official meeting. Is there any reason we can't take a motion?
It's not an action item on the agenda, so you would need to,
I believe we can still make motions.
how would we do this? It's not an action item. Would we go back and redo the agenda to add it? It's
I
not
think
part of
if
this.
we were gonna take action on something that isn't the MTP, I think we would have to revise the agenda.
Add something. to
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I want to make sure. We would have to go back and amend the agenda and add an action item on there for you
it. Okay, thank
and
you.
then go through the normal process of that.
Well, let's just dig into the MTP items and then at the end, if we want to take time to do that, it could be helpful. Just so that you have a little bit more time to prepare ahead of work sessions. Remember Baldwin Days at work?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up. Absolutely. Okay, so to begin with, the first item that's on the project list are the complete streets. Would the committee like to just go through them one group at a time, or is there another order that you think would work?
The complete streets. Sorry, I'm catching up on the laptop here. So in terms of order of operations, would we need to bucket would we need to do these amendments individually, or could we bucket all of the complete streets actions into one motion?
You can do it as one. Yeah, it's just, some of them may be a little more technically challenging. So you can bucket some of them. How would we do this? Because it's gonna be like an overall main motion.
Well, I'd suggest let's start at number 1 and just go through them. And if we get through like number 10 and we can approve them all, then let's just take that action to clear the slate and then do the next. And if we have significant changes on one, then let's make a motion for that one item, so it's easy to follow.
Well, we have to have a main motion
Yes.
and then you can edit the main motion. So the main motion would be just generic approval. And then you can go through and do amendments or edits if you have changes that you would like.
We will have multiple motions today
Mhm.
to go through them.
Amendments, you'll have multiple, you only have one main motion, but you'll have multiple amendments to it.
All right, let's take a brief at ease. That's going to be extremely long, and I don't think that that's technically necessary for Robert's rules. So I'd be looking to perhaps assembly members who have a lot of experience with complex Robert's rules. I think if that's the requirement, it's going to not be manageable, to be honest. There'll be a lot of discussion points. So
Yeah, I think from a Robert's Rules standpoint, I think we could move to approve the complete streets recommendations from the TAC. And then that would open up the possibility to discuss any of those items 1 through 8. And so we could work through those and just discuss them. And then if we wanted to move to approve all of those things, we could move directly to a vote. If we wanted to make amendments, we could make amendments as sort of as needed. And then I don't think it'll be quite as clunky as it sounds. The initial motion to approve the complete streets recommendations is just unlocks the option to make changes or adjust.
So you're proposing we have motions for each project list and
Yes,
then amend projects within that?
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, let's give that a whirl.
That's what I was saying.
Madam
what I
Chair,
was-
I
If you're
do-
saying
do
one
have a-
motion for the entire action item?
Oh, like per, like move to, like we would move to approve just one, like number one in the complete streets?
No, that wouldn't be the
Oh.
ideal. No.
Okay,
I
that's.
thought we were going to be restricted to one motion for the entire action item, in
Each,
which we'd have 40 amendments. Exaggerating, but-
We need to do
each
that.
project list you would.
Yeah,
And then the fiscal assumptions as well, we would need to. So you would go through each project list, Complete Streets would have its own main motion and any amendments. Non-motorized would have its main motion and any amendments. Transit, its main motion and the amendments, Alaska Railroad Corporation, and then the fiscal assumption.
Okay,
I
well,
do have a
let's
quick
dig
question,
in
if it's
and we'll
okay.
get back on order, or on the record.
Member Boland is.
Yeah, Member Bolin, thank you.
Yeah,
Please.
thank you. I think I want to ask staff about sort of precedent with, taking action and voting on things in a work session format like this. When the assembly has our assembly work sessions, it's more of an opportunity to dig into legislation or ideas, and in fact, often we're discussing legislation in those work sessions, and we don't debate the merits of that legislation in those work sessions. It's more of an opportunity for information sharing. And so I guess I'm just curious, we have our sort of publicly noticed policy committee meetings. When the assembly has committee meetings, we are able to debate. That committee can take votes if they want, to express their will to the rest of the body. And so, yeah, I guess I'm just curious about past AMAPS work sessions like this. Do we actually take actions in them? Is there precedent for that, or would it be more appropriate to have the discussion here and the information, and then to vote on those takeaways, essentially take action on them in a regular policy committee meeting? Do you have any insight into that, Aaron? What sort of past practice has been?
Yeah, so today is a special policy committee meeting. We are not in a
As
work
opposed to a
session.
work
So,
session. Got it.
yeah,
Okay.
so
Thanks for the clarity. Okay, that helps. All right. Well, in that case, let's play ball. Here we go.
tally ho. So I would like to,
Oh, go ahead.
Madam Chair, may I be, sorry. Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
we're still at ease.
Oh,
So,
we're still in it.
yeah, but I can
Okay.
go back on the record.
oh, okay.
we should.
But if you do have anything about just process.
No, I think we should go back on the record.
Okay. Okay, so back on the record, it's 10:26. In the interim, we were just discussing the working the nuances of Robert's rules and whether or not we can make subsequent motions, multiple motions on an action item. It's determined that yes, we could, but we are going to limit it to the project lists, so that we have one motion per project list and try to keep all the amendments to that one motion. So we'll have multiple motions subsequently, but rather than breaking out several motions per project list, we will just have one motion and see if that works. And we have confirmed that this is a special policy committee session, not a work session. So therefore, we will keep this to official actions. So, yeah, Member Colhase.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding, this is specific to the information we received on June 17th related to the Safer Sewer project. And I don't want to discuss the project yet, but in reviewing the information provided, I did have some questions for staff specific to how this information, whether this information is comprehensive enough to allow a vote on the Safer Seward Highway project today. And my questions are particularly surrounding the cost estimates. There are only costs provided for P4 and P7 elements. And I'm wondering, and I'll break my question into two parts. Mr. Young and Ellen, if you or staff could comment on whether that amount of information is adequate for inclusion in the MTP at this point, or is more information required in the way of cost?
More information is needed in the way of cost. We need total project cost. So we only have phase 4 and 7, so we need the design phase and the right-of-way phase.
And as is for discussion, at the time, the request was for the staging of the construction projects, so that's what was provided here. It is no difficulty for projects team, and we have our pre-construction engineer here, Luke Boland, so I'd like to ask him for clarification on that. And what those pre-construction costs are, but it was not the request, but it is more than happy to provide that as we do have. Yeah, could you clarify?
Yeah, thank you. For the record, Luke Boland, DOT Pre-Construction Engineer for Central Region. So the construction breakdown that we have there on the memo doesn't include the phase 2 or 3 costs. Phase 2, the additional design costs that we're anticipating for that whole 20-mile stretch would be in the ballpark of $50 million. And the right-of-way phase or phase 3 costs is estimated at $3 million. I think we're looking at the additional phase 2 additional design cost at the completion of NEPA, which would probably be looking at fiscal year 27 for that, based on where the project is in the schedule. And then the phase 3 cost could either be 27 or 28.
So to clarify, the next time we'll need to obligate additional funds will be 27.
You said it's for final design,
Correct, yeah.
so that's when the final design of the project will be completed.
ATP through final, but obviously with a project like this, would be staging this over decades, right? So the ATP through final, an extended period with multiple child developments.
The top projects are just the construction utilities.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so design will be done in 27.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Well, with the exception that, you know, as this project progresses over the years, there may be additional funds needed, but that would be, yeah, you would have time to accommodate that in the future and give updates.
And for the 50 million, was that inclusive of the first, what we've obligated to date, or is the 50 million what we've obligated and the final design?
I understand is that's an additional 50.
Okay,
Final for
ATP to final is the 50. And you know what we've obligated to date? Sorry, put you on the spot with numbers.
Warren Little is online and may have.
Yeah. Yeah, our chief engineer, Lauren Little, is online. Lauren, are you able to hear us?
I am, for the record, Lauren Little, Chief Engineer for Alaska DOT and PF. If you give me 1 second, I can pull that up in Iris. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it'll just take a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry, again, Luke Ball on the DOT. Looks like we have 16.5 million grant
Okay.
preliminary design and environmental.
So to summarize, we have obligated to date for initial design and environmental 16.5 million. The next obligation will be in federal fiscal year 27. That gives us authority to proceed on final design. That'll be 50 million. A right-of-way phase of 3 million will be needed in 27 or 28. And that gets us through the pre-construction costs to kick off these initial construction phases. So we will amend this document for the record and just make it available and email that back to Mr. Young and Ellen. But I remember Colhist, your question was, is it enough information? But does that satisfy your inquiry right now?
I would say it satisfies my inquiry. I would have to defer to the AMAT staff as to whether it meets their needs for preparing the modifying the numbers in the MTP.
In terms of the funding, yes, that satisfies, yes.
And then if I may, Madam Chair, my second question, again, I think for AMAT staff is, with the project broken into the 8 phases or 8 stages or segments, there are not detailed project descriptions. There's a description of the safety needs that are addressed, but the project description, the description of the work to be done in those phases is not a lot of detail there. So does that fall back to what's identified in the draft EA, or is additional information needed in this document in order to populate 8 phases of work that would be added to the MTP?
Yeah, for staff's perspective on what we've had, we would need project descriptions on what each of these is going to do. Like, for example, this first one, south of Potter Marsh to McHugh Creek, it says what the safety needs are, but then it lists no separated non-motorized facility. So we would need to know, is that part of the project description? So no non-motorized facility is going to be added at that phase, or what? So we would need some more information on what the projects are actually doing. And it's not just funsies we're asking this. We need it so we can do the modeling. Because part of our requirements is putting these projects in. We would have to model the ones in the MPO boundary and any of the ones that are regionally significant that require FHWA action that impact the MPO. We would also have to model them. And so we need enough information to put into the model. Like, for example,
Thank you. And I
Yeah.
can just clarify, this was a summary letter for the policy committee for purposes of decision-making. The assumption is that in general, Mr. Young and Ellen is the AMATS DOT coordinator, coordinates with our DOT AMATS coordinator. So they liaise and they get that information for specifically including it in the MTP. So I apologize. This wasn't intended to be give everything all encompassing for your programming. So I apologize that I didn't realize that was a request when we wrote the letter, but we can get that to you. Or we can work with Mark Eisman and our pre-construction engineer to get the language needed for the MTP itself. We will provide it. We have information's available.
yeah, I mean, it's not really for me. It's for you guys as the policy committee to make sure you're comfortable with what the description is in the MTP.
Okay.
We just need it for the modeling side of things.
Yeah, thank you. That was the question. If you had everything that you needed from Member Colpace, and the answer is no, you need additional information, which we can provide.
Madam Chair, if I might.
Yeah.
I think that those, I think that information is actually, quite important for the decision-making process for this body. I would certainly appreciate seeing, something that is commensurate with what is before us in the project lists. This gives us a really clear idea of every other project that's been proposed for MTP inclusion. And so I think beyond, what's useful for AMAT staff in terms of modeling, it's also really critical for policy committee members in terms of feeling really confident in our decision making and honestly being able to be accountable to the public for, the reasons that we would choose to include these projects. So I would feel, I wouldn't feel comfortable including these placeholders without additional detail on what exactly the scope of each segment would include. And speaking for myself personally.
Yeah, thank you. That's good information. Our draft environmental assessment, in which the committee and staff had provided excellent questions. The Commissioner Anderson had submitted a letter back to staff and the committee. This was just last night. So we do know that there has been extensive conversation, which has been great, based on that environmental assessment. The scope of the project has not changed. So I think we can all be confident in the decisions that we make, that we fully understand the scope of the Seward Highway project. What's in question is exactly the segmentation or how this gets staged. And to be honest, what we have proposed is still a draft. Some of these projects go out past 2035, I believe, 2035. So it's inevitable that the staging and sequencing of construction will change based on other needs at the time and other construction in that corridor. So I can assure you that the scope of what the project entails, that purpose and need, is the same as what you've read in the draft EA. And if you have further clarifying questions, both our chief engineer and our pre-construction engineer can answer any of them. We're happy to take the time to do so.
Yeah, so, to your point, this response letter arrived in our inboxes last night at 6:36 p.m. I was in an assembly meeting until quite late and have not had time to digest the entirety of this document, which I appreciate how comprehensive it is, but it is 30 pages. And so again, in terms of due diligence, and particularly since we've had so many questions about the draft EA itself, I really hesitate to move ahead with, I think, the number of questions that are still lingering in my mind as far as this project and its. To be quite honest, I'm not entirely clear on the last paragraph of the June 17th letter that suggests that there would be no meaningful financial impact on Anchorage projects. And so to me, there are many unanswered questions with respect to this particular project and its inclusion in the MTP. And so I think a question for staff actually might be whether it's possible to, is there a form in which we could take more time with this item in particular, with the Safer Seward Highway suite of placeholder projects, and amend the MTP at some future date? Or is this our one and only opportunity to really have this conversation in a fulsome way?
Sorry, I don't really know how to answer because I don't want to seem obstinate, but it's not your only opportunity, even with this MTP update, because you could always schedule like a later special meeting if you wanted more time to review things and get more information and come back and have the discussion. If you're just talking about kind of in the future, yes, there is always an opportunity to amend the MTP at a later date to add the project in. We're just in the middle of an MTP update right now, so no changes would really happen to the MTP we're working on until it's finalized. And then we would do an amendment after it's finalized. So it's not like we would do an amendment to the 2052 MTP while we're in the middle of updating it.
Sure. Okay, no, that's not obstinate at all. That's really helpful.
Thank you. While you consider your next question, I would like to ask Chief Engineer Lauren Little, can you give us an update on the scope and how we've broken out the projects, but segmented, and you could add on to that the impacts, how spending dollars in the National Highway System, our National Highway Performance Program funds, how we select projects statewide. Could you touch on those two topics, please, for context?
Yes, absolutely. For the record, Lauren Little, Chief Engineer, Alaska DOT NPF. Speaking to the Seward Highway and its impacts to programming statewide to start, this really isn't new for us. We have started a lot of large linear corridor projects because it provides a very efficient way to cost effectively get survey, work through environmental issues, and have a comprehensive environmental document for a corridor that we can then break into logical segments for construction. These long linear highway projects are fairly easily broken up into manageable components because within the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, the STIP, we have to balance that financial investment across our entire state and multiple modes, right? Non-motorized users, highway users, freight users, all of that gets balanced across that transportation investment program. And so our strategy here for the Safer Seward project is very similar to how we've approached things like the Parks Highway. We've got a project, Parks Highway 163 to 183, that we're constructing in logical packages that fit the available funding in a given fiscal year. And And further, you know, the Cooper Landing bypass project, Sterling Highway milepost 45 to 60 is another great example. You know, that was one that the contracting community was really concerned about, you know, that amount of money on one project. And I think we've shown we can stage these projects so that other projects and programs in the state continue to advance. It's not just the Seward Highway project in the STIP. And we have to do that, right? Because projects like this have a lot of complexities, permitting and all of those details. So we need to have a balanced program. And so that's what we've done here with this project. Another requirement for projects of this size with federal highways is we have to develop a financial plan. So we, as a state DOT, have to prove to federal highways that this can be constructed and we can fund it, you know, for the full suite of improvements. We've done a draft of that early on in the project life. It needs to be finalized before our first construction package. Obviously, it will be a living document. We haven't gone through the refinement process now. We're really focused on getting to that completed environmental document, but at a federal level, even we have to speak to that reasonable financial investment, and so that's part of our efforts and part of our early efforts before we got too far down the environmental process was how do we build this project with the funding that we know we're going to have, which is generally the National Highway Performance Program, federal highway funds. And so our planned investment is somewhere between 75 and 150 million, balanced over many years. We don't expect to build the Safer Seward Highway in the next 3 years. We have a 15 to 20-year plan to build those improvements out. Speaking to how projects get prioritized across the state, again, it's that balance. We need to have a mix of investment in modes. We need to have our investments balanced with the various flavors of federal highway money that comes in. And so, you know, we have sort of a two-pronged approach there. One is through the planning group, identifying needs, developing these various transportation plans, needs lists, and feeding that into the new project starts. And then working with our regional delivery teams on where projects are at, existing projects are at in their life cycle to make sure that they have their construction years programmed correctly in the STIP. And a lot of that is based on project readiness when we start looking at the 4-year STIP horizon. So it's a very many overlapping facets that go into the actual full prioritizing in the STIP. And so, you know, I think the biggest thing that we have found in the last 8 to 10 years is project readiness. It's a project's ability to get through the local planning process, the environmental process, the permitting processes. That really dictates those priorities in the STIP. It's got to be ready because we've got to capture that funding and we've got to deliver that investment to our communities, to our contractors. And so overall, you know, as we bring the Safer Seward Highway into, and it is in the STIP, is balancing all of those factors and making sure that we've got this project in appropriate dollar thresholds and delivery timeframes that we can still deliver the rest of the planned improvements for Alaska, right? We have many communities we serve, many different modes of transportation that we're making sure we invest equitably across, and also making sure that what we have planned financially, those projects are ready. All of those components feed into that prioritization. Catherine, did I capture all of the elements? I feel like I'm missing one that you listed.
Well, thanks for that. And because of the fact that you're on the Fairbanks area MPO FAST, and in your role as the in project delivery division as a director overseeing planning, can you comment on your understanding of what's required right now for the Safer Seward Highway 98.5 to 118 project in the MTP? What do we need right now for your understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, these are long-range transportation planning documents. And so in my experience, a parent project scope would be sufficient, right? We're not doing something different within the MPO boundary than we're doing with with the areas south of the NPO boundary. It is a comprehensive project, and the termini were set, based on that having that consistent driver experience, and not continuing to piecemeal this really critical interstate highway route. We've tried all the quick fixes, we've tried all the smaller things, and that's sort of what brought us to today. So in my experience, having an understanding of the dollars per year and the overall scope of the project is what I would have expected to be sufficient for a long-range transportation planning document. Obviously, the tip would need to be much more specific for those subsequent work packages, but at a long-range planning level, this is typically sufficient information in my experience.
Okay, thanks. That helps. I mean, I know in our STIP, we have one scope that's the same for the parent and all child projects. And then we break out project scopes when we obligate it with more detail. Your understanding is that's what we should focus on for the MTP, or at least sufficient for approval. Okay.
Yes, and further, Federal Highways was very clear in that new STIP process that we should be showing parents with the parents, children with the tied to that parent scope.
Any questions for our chief engineer right now on the technical side or of the project?
Yeah, if I might.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Ms. Little. So I guess I want to put maybe a bit of a finer point on the funding mechanism. So I'm assuming that the NHPP funding it's not unlimited, correct? It's a formula based funding model. Is that right?
That is correct. We get so many dollars per year of that National Highway Performance Program. And then we supplement that with our advanced construct funding as needed. The NHPP does obviously have a lot of pressures against it, but also we've always reliably fully delivered it and not seen any projects that were ready that couldn't be funded. In fact, in my career here, I have yet to see a project that was ready, had all its permits, all of its requirements met, not be funded.
So that it is essentially high in the sense that investment of NHPP funds in one project necessarily means other projects are not funded, can't be funded because we've allocated money to a particular project that's part of that NHPP program. Is that also correct?
Not necessarily, right? I mean, we get so many dollars per year. And then there's also the August redistribution component. And further, we can spend other funding sources, such as the Surface Transportation Block Grant funding, that can be spent on NHS routes as well. And then, of course, we also have the Advanced Construct tool available to us, as well as we are pursuing grants where it makes sense or where scopes within the larger termini align with grant opportunities. So there's a multitude of ways to fund this, but in terms of the financial plan, we have balanced that investment largely on the NHPP funding assumptions of how much dollars we get per year and what is a reasonable amount to allocate to this project versus other projects in the state.
Okay. I think what I'm wondering about, and I think where there's at least concern in my mind, is that we're essentially proposing, even at a very, very high level, to lock up $1.5 billion in NHPP funding over the next 20 years. I mean, what's the timeline here?
Yeah, it would be 15 to 20 years, and I just want to be clear, and inclusion in a long-range transportation plan such as the MTP does not lock up that money. It shows our intent to invest. It allows us to make those investments. But if projects aren't ready, those investments go elsewhere. So I don't necessarily agree with the concept of it locking up the money, but it is the state's intent, right? This is a very high crash corridor. We've had a lot of severe crashes. In fact, we just had the recent fatalities at Potter Marsh in the area of project we're talking about, that this project could resolve. And so, it is a state commitment that this corridor is important, and we intend to make this investment. But the projects have to be ready, and those estimates are going to evolve over time as well, right? 20 years is a long horizon.
It is a long horizon, I'm not disputing that at all. I think if we're talking about wanting to make meaningful safety investments on the NHS, the characterization that the Safer Seward Highway is the place where we ought to be dropping 1.5 billion over the next 15 years it rings a little hollow for me, because that particular segment of highway doesn't even crack the top 30 most dangerous roadways in Anchorage. And even if we were to hold those up against roadways on the NHS, and I'm talking specifically about Tudor and Muldoon, those are corridors where what happened on this Seward Highway or at Potter Marsh last week happens with regularity and without a whole lot of notice or fanfare. And so I think it's difficult for me as someone who lives here and who recognizes that the safety risk of driving on NHS roadways in Anchorage is far more real and significant and statistically provable than this particular stretch of the Seward Highway, which admittedly is not the safest and could be improved. It's really difficult to hear the justification that this is a needed safety improvement when it's clear that there are exponentially greater needs on the NHS that we can point to in the data. And that really is the reason why I struggle with this, even as a long range solution, because I don't see commensurate solutions for far more dangerous roadways that are part of the NHS, where people are dying and people are being seriously injured and killed on a very regular basis. And I don't see those projects reflected or prioritized in the same way. And that's really troubling, because it begs the question, are we actually investing our NHPP dollars in the places where the need and the safety demand is the greatest? And I think looking at this, the answer is no, we're not. And that makes it hard as a policymaker to justify to my community why I would include this project at this scale, at this price tag, when there is no visible commitment or investment in places where, again, we have a documented safety risk that is unassailable, in my opinion. So that's really where the genesis comes from for me for this conversation, is this is in the end, it is a zero-sum funding game, whether we want to talk about it that way or not. And it's troubling that we would prioritize something like this to the detriment and potentially the very real exclusion of other more necessary projects.
Thank you, Member Baldwin Day. Those are excellent points. And I'll just say, as a Deputy Commissioner of DOT, I'm extremely proud that we are prioritizing this project. It's the Safer Seward Highway Corridor because it is a safety corridor as established by Alaska statute. That's why it's the Safer Seward Highway Corridor. And focusing on resolving the last safety corridor doesn't mean it's the only unsafe route in the state, certainly not in the Anchorage area. But safety is not the only purpose and need for this project. This is if anyone has driven lately to try to get down to the peninsula and been stuck in hours of road closures, I'd love to see a statistic on the number of hours this year to date that that road has been shut down and people have been just sitting there in traffic. So when we have rock slides, the road is shut down. Avalanches, the road is shut down. A crash, the road is shut down. That is the only way in and out of Anchorage by road, right? So the purpose of this project is not only to resolve safety concerns, it's to enable access in and out. There are multiple benefits of the project, and another consideration and or for awareness, and I see, member Volan, you have your hand up, but what we have in the project is moving forward. Mileposts 98.5, along with, see, this seems to be highlighted strangely. Yeah, 98.5 to 105. These are projects the department is moving forward with. There's 2 project segments that are within the MPA. That's the Potter Creek area to McHugh Creek, Rabbit Creek to Potter Creek. Those are projects staged for 37 and 40 right now. We have put them at the last sequencing of the staging because of the prioritization here and allowing time, ample time for conversations on the design of those segments. So the amount of funds that we're expecting of the National Highway statewide DOT funds within the MPA at this time as estimated is about 520 million. So what the state needs at this time and is requesting in our letters is that we include this project, the entire corridor, 98.5 to 118, and that we need to be able to have the authority to proceed to final design in 27. So being able to continue to spend dollars on this corridor without having to be having that to be state funds, enabling our current funds to be reimbursed by federal highways, and that we can move forward on pre-construction to finish the dialogue and conversation on this and to look at the design again, which right now the project team is not able to. So it's not a definitive, it's not in the tip before we can take action. To Lauren Little's point, it's going to need to be in the tip where there's another decision point on what actually moves forward with funding. So just some perspective. And yeah, member Volan, please go ahead. And if we don't see your hand raised up, please just alert us. It's not where I'm sitting. I can't quite see the screen that well when you have your hand up. So I apologize if you've been waiting.
Sorry, I got to unmute myself. Not a problem. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I guess I'll just say, for my part, I am more aligned with Member Baldwin Day. From my perspective, the project team can do whatever they want to do outside of the AMAP's boundary. Within the AMAP's boundary, however, I think to prioritize such an expensive project, even as a placeholder, over higher crash roads, you're dealing here with the representatives of North Anchorage, including downtown as well as Midtown, and so the urban core, and we are acutely aware of the safety issues on state roads within our districts. And so to prioritize this for me as a policymaker, I feel strongly would be malpractice. And so I don't intend to support the inclusion of this project. And I'm still unconvinced that a highway widening project is going to create more safety. To the chair's remarks, there may be other purposes of potentially facilitating faster mobility through the corridor, that cars could drive faster, and traffic mitigation perhaps. However, I just This is not something I intend to support, the inclusion of this project, at least a portion within the AMATS boundary on either the MTP or the TIP, particularly our short-range transportation plan. We've got a lot of needs and we've got a lot of work to do on making our streets more safe. So thank you. I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, on that, I'd like to ask our pre-construction engineer, Luke Boland, like, what do we have for project starts on these corridors that both members have brought up, Assembly?
Thank you, Luke Boland, DOT. So we do have a number of projects on Tudor and Muldoon actively. We've got a channelization project at Tootle and Patterson that's going to be an obligation this year for construction next summer. That's a HSIP project. We also have HSIP projects looking at improvements on Tudor and Dale, Tudor and Faulkner. We're nominating another HSIP project on Muldoon, the Fred Meyer vicinity there, to address safety concerns brought up by Member Baldwin Day. We also have pavement preservation projects on both Muldoon and Tudor, which we'll be looking at incorporating any safety aspects that we can those two projects. We have a corridor plan that we're going to be looking at for Tudor and Muldoon, which hopefully lends us to additional projects that can come out of that study. Another thing too is the approaches for the Seward Highway and the approaches for roads like Tudor and Muldoon in an urban context are quite different. We've looked at safety corridors, and what we found is that a 4-lane divided facility does solve those head-on collision safety problems that we see there. And so we've moved forward with a 4-lane divided on the Parks Highway, on sections of the Glen Highway, on Connect Goose Bay. And so it's more of a proven concept there for highway facilities. For a Tudor or a Muldoon, you're looking at a facility that's trying to accommodate all users in confined spaces, and the number of stakeholders within those, with all the businesses and residences, it's very complex, and so it's less of a straightforward answer when we're talking about the needs within Anchorage. And so I hear the points of Member Baldwin Day and Member Boland, that we do have needs within the community, and the prioritization of that, I think that's what comes as we look at where these projects land in a TIP. I think we can all agree that we've got needs within the Anchorage area and we've got needs on the Seward Highway, and how we allocate funding to those different needs, I think is something that is something we absolutely should debate as an organization like AMATS.
Yeah, thank you. Because I do want to make a motion. I'm going to hand the gavel to the vice chair. So I would like to move that the AMATS Policy Committee do include the Safer Seward Highway milepost 98.5 to 118 in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan as presented, and that staff will work with AMATS coordinator on further information that needs to be provided for scope. So I will abbreviate that. I'll make a motion to incorporate Seward Highway milepost 98.5 to 118 in the MTP 2052. But this would be, leave it at that. Do I have a second?
We actually need to do public comment before we make motions. So that's our standard practice, is you have discussion, then you have the public comment, and then you make a motion. So we would just need to do public testimony before we do motions. Sorry, just want to point that out.
So order wise, we'll do that ahead of every project list.
Basically, before each motion, you would need to just have public testimony, and you can limit it and say, we're talking about the Complete Streets project list now, get your public testimony in on that. I guess they're welcome to do it on all items, but since we're going to be specifically talking about that one, you'd limit it to that and say, we're talking about the Complete Streets. If you have any public testimony on the Complete Streets list, please get it in now before.
That might help.
Yeah, that would help narrow it down.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we'll open it up to any public comments on the topic of including the Safer Seward Highway on the MTP. I think I see Alexa's Dobson's hand raised. Go ahead, Alexa.
Thank you. Alexa Dobson, Executive Director of Bike Anchorage. I want to thank members Boland and Baldwin Day for their great comments here about putting the Seward Highway widening project into context in terms of the amount of money being spent here versus where it is truly needed in the Anchorage urban core. So from our perspective, if the scope of the Seward Highway widening project continues to be unchanged, as Deputy Director Keith mentioned, it has no place being added back into the MTP because that is specifically the reason why it was removed in the first place, because it is a highway widening project that uses safety as a fig leaf. I think we just heard that, once again, the justification for expanding the highway to a 4-lane divided highway was to prevent fatal head-on crashes. It's important to know that there were 3 of those in a 5-year analysis period used to justify that in the draft EA. So from our perspective, spending $500 million per fatal head-on crash prevented is a really poor use of funds and should not move forward. I do also want to observe on the concept of DOT's commitment to safety, that this is certainly a great place to be concerned about safety. There are other areas that are far more urgent safety needs, and many of those have actually they already have safety projects that have been programmed, but our chief engineer, Lauren Little, unilaterally imposed a directive that delays and adds cost to those projects for the reason that they might cause some driver inconvenience while saving lives. So we need to have that context and that understanding that, you know, we need to be serious about what we're talking about here. I would love to see DOT show a true commitment to safety and to direct money where that needs to happen. And until that happens, I really don't think that the project as it is currently scoped has any place in the MTP. So I would urge the policy committee to vote against its inclusion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alexa.
Jay Norris.
Jay Norris. Okay, Jay Norris, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jason Norris, South Anchorage. I don't want to belabor, Alexa said it very well. The whole justification for this project over 20 miles is head-on collisions, and there were 3. And I documented this pretty extensively in some written comments provided prior to now. And as best I can recall, those 3 took place in the same 2-mile stretch. And so it just makes no sense that we're trying to justify 20 miles worth of road treatment based on head-on collision deaths when those all took place in 10% of that corridor. And if you look next to a dozen Adjuma streams, filling something like 120 acres of essential fish habitat, getting rid of some pretty world-class recreation opportunities, this project just doesn't make sense, especially for the cost. So I would urge a no vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
Anybody else has their hand up that we can see?
Okay, any other public comments on the Safer Seward Highway?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So we kind of out of order, not out of order, out of sequence here. We moved on to the motion that we then tabled and then on to public comment. May I make a few comments, please?
Yes, please. Yeah, any committee comments further before? Yeah.
Well, are you guys done with public?
Seems like there's no further public comment. So that's closed for Safer Seward Highway. Member Colhase, any further?
You need to make a motion on the table and then you can do
Of
it.
course. Okay. So I'll move to include the Safer Seward Highway milepost 98.5 to 118 in the AMATS MTP 2052.
Seconded.
Who's the second?
Morgan. Member Frank.
Motion by Chair Keith and seconded by Frank. discussion then? I don't do this very often.
I think you can
Okay,
talk as discussion.
all right, so it strikes me that we're having a work session on the boundary, and this meeting probably should have, or to have been a work session on Safer Seward and maybe the MTP more broadly. I hear and agree with many of the comments made by Member Baldwin Day and Member Boland. I appreciate the comments by Member Little and by you, Madam Chair. I would say from the standpoint of the municipality, the administration, the Seward Highway is certainly of high importance. The roads that Member Baldwin Day and Member Boland mentioned, Tudor and Muldoon in particular, and other roads that I know, as Mr. Boland stated, are seeing some emphasis. Those are high priorities as well. I guess some of the concerns that we have, that I bring forward, are the letter from June 17th and then the letter we received last night seem to indicate that there's willingness to look at a range of design solutions. But there's also the draft EA, which has arrived at a 4-lane divided, that my understanding from, I think Ms. Little said it, that is the plan going forward. So it's hard to reconcile in my mind an acknowledgement of the need to maybe take a harder look at the range of design solutions that meet the purpose and need of the project, while there being a draft EA that says this is the design solution that's going to proceed forward. I would say that we have heard, whether 100% accurate or not, we have heard that there are concerns from at least some stakeholders that perhaps there wasn't public engagement and public opportunity for people to comment that some user groups may have expected. We've heard that, again, not saying that that's 100% accurate, but we've heard that from various user groups. Again, there's really a strong interest in looking at the range of design solutions that might be available to address these problems. And as Member Baldwin Day very eloquently said, there is a high interest in ensuring that the project does not take away opportunities for other work to happen in Anchorage with federal funds such as NHPP funds. And I guess my last comment for now is looking at the letter we received yesterday evening from Commissioner Anderson. There, as Member Baldwin Day noted, there's 30 pages of responses to comments both from policy committee members and from AMAT staff that were made back in February. And I haven't even gotten halfway through that document. It's been, just haven't been able to get through the whole thing. But I did note on a comment from Member Baldwin Day regarding specifically related to run off the road crashes and the department response. I'm not going to read it, but the department response says that the 4-lane divided concept it accomplishes curve correction, improved shoulders, clear zone, sight distance, access management. And it strikes me that response is accurate, but perhaps not comprehensive, because certainly a 3-lane section or some other design solution could accomplish many of those same objectives. So those are my comments. I guess a question for staff. We seem to be a little bit out of sequence now. We were going to work through individual items and then we're going to take up the complete streets as a total and work through them. Now we have on the table a motion to include this specific project in the MTP, but then we will back up and look at the broader complete streets package. I'm unsure how that functionally works.
So yeah, it's kind of an interesting point. So for staff's perspective, I'll just remind you, in our memo, we list kind of the remaining revenue available for each group to utilize. DOT has about 269 million based on the historical information provided. As the Safer Seward components in the MPO are 525 million. there is a little bit of an issue there of a discrepancy in how much is available to fund those projects. So that would need to be discussed as part of this and figured out how exactly is that funding going to come available. If it's more funding will come available that's above and beyond the historical amounts, we would just need something in writing and a commitment that that's going to happen. We can put that in the MTP so people know where it is. If that's not an option, then we would need to move projects out that are DOT specific to help free up that funding. And so that could be done as part of this or a discussion if you want to go back and talk about the complete streets list as a whole. I mean, we'll still need to deal with the complete streets list as a whole because there were some changes in there about adding in the Seward to Glen PEL projects, how those are going to be funded, et cetera. That still needs to be dealt with, including the cost increase for the Seward Highway Diamond to O'Malley as well.
I'd like to move to amend by substitution and recommend or approve the changes to the Complete Streets project list 1 through 7.
So you move to amend by substitution. So basically you move to amend, so substitute the motion on the floor with a new one.
Correct.
How do we handle this? Is this a vote?
I need a second and then it would take a vote.
Okay, thank you.
I will second for the purposes of the discussion because I'm not sure how this works.
Member Boland has his hand up as well.
As chair,
Fine.
to
Uh,
muted.
Hold on a second. Member Boland, you're muted if you're trying to speak.
Yeah, so I've assumed the gavel as chair just for purposes to work through this. Member Volan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess we're sort of changing the motion I was going to speak to the motion that was on the table, but I'm happy to hold back if we're reevaluating. So can we kind of clue me in again and what we're looking at here? I'm a little
Yeah, at this
confused.
point, Member Baldwin Day, instead of discussing the issue at hand, would like to divert the topic and the motion to something different, the Complete Streets 1 through 7. So the motion on the floor is the amendment by substitution for projects 1 through 7. So do you have a comment on that specifically? And then the other comment at this point would not be relevant.
I mean, I guess I can tailor my comments in a way to reflect the amendment, if that's helpful.
Yes.
So, okay, so it's an amendment by substitution to essentially move forward projects 1 through 7 for now. Okay. So I think what I will say is, that is something I'm more inclined to support. I do want to point out that the project, the Safer Seward Highway piece, that did go through the Planning and Zoning Commission process here in Anchorage. And I think that they had a lot of takeaways and it sort of speaks to what Mr. Kohlhase was pointing out in terms of, are we really looking at redesign options? And their recommendation was to return this project for redesign. They had a lot of concerns. If you look through the minutes, one commissioner said that it didn't look like the 3-lane option was adequately evaluated. Another commissioner, who is a traffic engineer, said the project team needs to do more math and data. That was their comment in the record. And so I guess I am interested in breaking apart 1 through 7 and sort of addressing maybe 8 separately. The other thing that is catching my interest is number 6. We've had a lot of back and forth about that project. And if I'm not mistaken, that is the Seward Highway to O'Malley, or the O'Malley to Diamond project, that reconstruction. And we've at one point moved to eliminate that project entirely. That did not pass. However, I mean, this is now a years-long conversation. Where we settled, sort of the compromise for that was a right sizing or a reduction in scope, and that was the deprogramming of that project to 32 rather not the deprogramming, excuse me, the reduction in funding to 32 million. As I seem to recall at one point, that project, that the full package there, and I know construction costs go up, but that full package was around, I want to say 111 million. And so now we're moving back in that direction. I don't know. I would be interested in a division of the question and taking up projects 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. I think those are less controversial. And then taking items 6 and 8 as separate amendments. I really need to hear the justification for why we are essentially doubling that project budget when we've already had substantial conversation about what it is we're actually trying to accomplish there. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Bolin.
If I could.
For Baldwin Day.
speak to my vote. Yeah, thank you. So my interest here is really in the interest of time. It's 11:23, which means we have, well, 24. So we don't have much time left in this special session. And I think at this point, it would be constructive for us to move as many of the points of agreement forward as we possibly can. And then, given Mr. Young-An-Elan's comment earlier that we can amend the MTP at a future date, potentially the more controversial or contentious questions could be taken up at a later time. And again, I would love to be able to do my own due diligence with the 30-page memo that we received last night from the commissioner. And I would also love to see, more of the technical breakdown or the project descriptions for each of these pieces of the corridor phasing for the Safer Seward. So that was the genesis, really the impetus behind my motion, is to move us to what can we get completed in the next 36 minutes of this special session. So with that in mind, and given Mr. Bolin's comment, I would like to amend my motion and say I'd like to amend by substitution complete streets, approval of complete streets 1 through 5 and 7. And I don't know if I still have a second from Mr. Kohlhees on that, but that would be my preferences to adjust my motion.
Is there a second?
I'm happy to second.
Well, there was already a second. We would need the second that already did it, which is Member Kohlhees, to agree to that.
Agree to the modified.
Okay, well, as a point of conversation, I believe we all know where we're at with Safer Seward Highway. I would encourage us to let's please just have a vote and move forward with the rest of the projects at hand. I think there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't prohibit us later from having a more extended conversation on this. But yes, I encourage us to not accept this amendment, go back to the original motion and vote on that, and then move to this very important motion as amended and suggested by Member Baldwin Day. Any other further questions or comments on the amendment before we call to a vote? The amendment? Okay. Let's just do a roll call vote. Member Baldwin Day?
Yes.
And this is again to amend this by substitution Safer Seward Highway to include 1 through 5 and number 7 of the complete streets. So,
And sorry to clarify, are you talking about the ones on the memo or on the complete street project list?
I am talking about the ones that are in the policy memo. So under PAC action.
okay, and if that amendment is adopted, we can take time and discussion and go through that specifically. So the vote at hand is to accept the amendment by substitution. Member Baldwin Day voted yes. Member Kohlhees?
Oh, yes on that.
Okay, Member Bolin?
Yes.
Okay, and Member Frank?
No.
Okay, myself votes no, but the amendment passes. So the motion on the floor now is to accept, incorporate in the MTP, the Complete Streets projects listed on the brief, on the item overview, not on the Excel project list. So Member Baldwin Day, would you care to amend further the motion on the floor to specify that?
Sure. Would it be helpful for staff if I enumerated the titles? Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, happy to do that. So this would be for adding the Sewer to Glen PEL project, 16th Avenue extension. Also the Port of Alaska freight routes reconnaissance engineering study, removing the project on line 144, Lake Otis Parkway to 20th Avenue, updating the project on line 145, also Lake Otis Parkway project, and an update to the project on line 137 to update the termini, increasing budget for projects on line 54 through 55. And I believe that is 1 through 5 and 7. Yes.
Yes, that's clear to me. Thank you.
Right.
Second, please, just on the clarification.
I'll second the
Okay,
clarification.
thank you. All right, any discussion from the committee?
So yes, I'm totally confused now. So what are we voting on now?
So I just stated for clarity, I don't know that that was a formal motion. It was just clarification of the what I was actually talking about in terms of which projects we would be approving for placement on the MTP. And so our vote now, if we were to take a vote, would be to formally incorporate 1 through 5 and 7 into the MTP.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. Those would be the adopted changes to the MTP.
Didn't hear Mr. Boland.
Member Boland, could you please say that one more time?
Oh, I was just saying that that's my understanding of the motion before us now, that it's been amended, is now we'd be voting to adopt those changes that Member Baldwin Day just outlined to the MTP.
Madam Chair, if I may ask a question of staff.
Yeah.
So if we vote on this, these, I guess the 6 items are then added to the MTP as it sits, but the body has not voted on the overall MTP. Is that correct?
Correct.
So
This
these,
is just making changes to the project list that is before you. These changes that are on the screen that the Member Baldwin Day went through, those would be added to the project list. That project list still hasn't been voted on about whether you guys wanted to move forward into the MTP or not.
and then I made one more question. In order for all of this to be wrapped up, the body needs to vote on all the elements that are on the spreadsheets as amended for final adoption.
Yes. Correct. And I think we decided to do it individually so the complete streets needs its own, non-motorized needs its own, and then transit and railroad needs.
So we voted on a component of the complete streets. Now I imagine now we'll have some discussion on the safer sewer project, perhaps the other one. Then we'll vote on that, the entire complete streets list, and then we'll move on to another list.
Correct.
In 30 minutes. So I have one more question for staff and I'll stop for now. And I hate to suggest this, but we've spent an hour and a half on, I think, very important discussions. And we're now going to be pressed to make, significant progress and vote on some very important items for final inclusion. Is there an opportunity in your mind as far as scheduling on staff for a second special meeting of the policy committee if needed? And if so, when could that happen?
Yeah, you can either extend the meeting today. If it's not possible to extend the meeting today, yes, we can do a special work session or another special meeting, sorry, not work session, for the policy committee. We would just need advance notice, so 7 days notice. So at this point, we could do next Wednesday, because we could get it out today to do the notice. Just as a reminder, next Thursday is the regularly scheduled policy committee meeting that has pretty important items on there. So just kind of keep that in mind. We would just need 7 days notice. So I think if you were looking to do another special meeting, it might be best to sit down and figure that out now so we can get it scheduled since you're all here and we can talk about schedules.
And if I may, one last follow-up question. I said that was my last one. This is my last one on this. Anything that we vote on today, say we don't vote on the final adoption, but we vote on complete streets, say we solve complete streets today, or we solve non-motorized today. Those would carry forward to the special, if we have another special meeting, it would carry forward as approved, and then the vote then would be for the remaining elements that are outstanding.
Yeah, whatever is not completed today, we would bring forward to the special work session, unless you guys said otherwise. But I think the idea would be if you complete something today, then we don't have to readdress it at a future meeting. We've already dealt it. And so staff would take that and incorporate it into the document and make it available for the version you're going to see for release to public comment.
So we're identifying what we can say yes to, so we can cross that off our list. And right now, the at hand is saying yes to 1 through 5 and 7 on the brief. And item 6 and 8, we're not at this point rejecting them. We're just saying not
Right.
in this motion.
Thank you, yes.
Yes.
Now are we open for discussion on the motion on the table then?
Yes,
1 through 5 and 7?
we're currently in discussion on the amendment on the
Okay.
motion on the floor, amended motion on the floor. Yeah, any further discussion?
I guess I do have, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
For item 7, I did not have the opportunity to talk with the transit staff on this, but I see your note here, Mr. Young and Ellen, staff needs direction where the funding was come from out of AMAS projects. And that total looks like 1.8 million over the 20-year life of the MTP.
4.2 million.
4.2 million, okay.
Correct.
Where in your vision, where would the funding come from, or would we need to make the determination now?
You guys vote to approve it as is. Staff would do our best to make a recommendation on what that would be, and you would see that with the final version of whatever the complete streets list is. You guys have an idea of what project those can come from? Because right now the AMATS program or the AMATS funding is fiscally constrained, so we don't have room for number 7 current program without moving something out. And a lot of what we have is pretty tightly called for in most of our existing programs and projects. So there is not a whole lot that can be moved out. Yeah, I don't have a recommendation for you at this time.
Given that, I suggest, and I could hand the gavel to you, but if we amend the motion to remove 7, it would be smart to have a look at the fiscally constrained project list, so we can make that recommendation.
Yeah.
So if right now, if we could accept 1 through 5, that would help. If you so choose to make such an amendment.
Yeah, so
Yeah, well,
no, I guess I would move to amend the list to remove item 7. So it would be items 1 through 5 with the understanding that there's some discussion to be had yet on the fiscal constraint discussion. And
Second.
Thank you.
Okay.
so the
Okay.
seconded by member Colhase. So the motion on the floor for discussion is now to accept recommendations of the TAC, items 1 through 5 of the Complete Streets project list. Any further discussion on this? Okay, hearing none. Any objections to incorporating 1 through 5 changes in the MTP? Okay, so the motion passes. Mr. Young and Ellen, do you have any further clarifying questions needed on
No.
this motion? Are you clear?
I'll just rephrase what I heard. So basically you just accepted 1 through 5 on the memo, and 6, 7, and 8 still are open for discussion on what you want to do. Is that correct? Okay, great. Thank you.
So prior to moving on to further project discussions, member Colhase had brought up our time left before the end. So we have 23 minutes left. What's the will of the committee? Time that we can discuss time extensions today or further sessions? Yes,
Madam Chair,
member Colhase.
A comment, then I'll make a motion. Given that it's taken now hour and 37 minutes to get through where we are now. I would move that we calendar a follow-up special meeting to resolve any items that we have tabled today that we don't get to the remaining 24 minutes of the meeting. You need a date suggested, Mr. Young?
I think if the committee's in agreement with that, I would like it if we could figure out the date now so we can get it scheduled and not have to worry about trying to do like a doodle poll or anything afterwards.
I will second Member Skolhase's motion. Great. My suggestion would be the afternoon of Wednesday, the 15th.
We don't have a technical motion on the floor yet, although let's do that. I thought it was just discussion. Could you,
I move to.
thank you,
yeah,
sorry.
To calendar a special meeting.
Okay, motion on the floor is to calendar a meeting.
May I amend my motion? I would
Yes.
move to calendar a meeting for just sake of discussion anyway, for the afternoon of Wednesday, the 15th of July.
Seconded.
Okay, so currently, motion on the floor is to schedule a meeting to complete the review for projects on the MTP. The proposed date is the Wednesday, the 22nd,
15th.
right? 15th. Oh, I was, thanks. 15th, Wednesday, July 15th. So any discussion, any problems with that date by the committee members at least?
Afternoon of the 15th works great for me.
I'm curious for AMAT's staff, is this room available next
Yes, I
Wednesday?
just looked, this room is available.
Okay, starting at what time?
It's starting most of the day. There's only a meeting in the morning at 9 to 10:30. So anytime 10:30 onward, it looks like it is free. I will say we'll need a little bit of setup time, so maybe not right at 10:30, maybe 11 or later.
So Member Bolland and I have a Housing and Homelessness Committee meeting that is 11 to 12:30. I would love the opportunity to eat lunch before we come and do this work. Could we do something in the neighborhood of like 1:30 or 2? Would that be all right? And I don't know what's on Member Bolland's calendar. He might have other commitments.
That time would work for me, thanks.
And for staff, could we schedule a 3-hour meeting if that was desired?
3-hour tour.
We could do, yes, we could. There is enough time in the meeting space for us to do that if you want.
So we're talking about starting time at 1:30 or two, let's say 2 o'clock.
Let's do 2. Do we want to, so 2 to 5 is what we're contemplating?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Member Bolin, Member Frank, any objections to that or issues?
That sounds
I would
great.
just say, let's just make 3 hours, not, the ceiling, not the target.
Yes. Good idea. Yeah.
Was there a second for this special meeting? It was, okay, thank you.
Okay, so, member or anyone, could you just make a clarifying amendment on the time and date so it's
Oh.
on the record very clear?
Clarify my motion. Hold a special meeting of the policy committee on Wednesday, July 15th from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. in this room.
And so technically that was an amendment.
Yep.
Second on that, so we can,
Oh, no, he's free to amend his motion and my second stance. Yeah.
okay, thank you. Okay, any objections? Thank you. Hearing none. Aaron, please, do what's needed for a 3-hour meeting,
We're doing it now.
July 15th, 2 to 5. And really hope members of the public and are able to attend and participate. Thank you. So with that, back to the topic at hand.
I wonder if we might move through of lists quickly in in the 18 minutes available. So I would like to move that we approve the recommended change to the NCP under the transit bullet on the policy brief, which is to remove projects on lines 13 through 17.
Second.
The motion on the floor is in the memo transit section. We'd like to remove projects on lines 13 to 17 in the MTP transit project list. Any discussion from the committee?
Yeah, I think I would just like to say that it causes me some heartbreak to remove, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, we're just procedural note on public comments after this.
Yeah, we got to do public comments technically before the motions, but
Apologies.
yeah.
Pause.
Okay, yes. Please continue and then we'll.
But we'll invert the process here.
Yeah.
Just a note to say that it does cause me some sadness to see these removed from the transit project list because they are all very important pieces of our transit system. So I hope that they recover. That's a future point.
Any further dialogue on the committee? Okay, let's please, any public comment on this topic of the transit, removing these 5 projects from the project list. And sorry, we are out of order, but if any comments, please raise your hand.
Bart Rudolph has his hand up.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, thank you, Bart Rudolph, Director of the Public Transit Department. I just want to address Aaron's comment that these projects are just duplicates. They will remain in the MTP and other project line items. So you're not actually removing any projects, you're just removing the duplication of each line item.
That is delightful news. Thank you.
I appreciate that as well, Mr. Rudolph. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay, great. I would like to add a clarifying word in that motion that we are removing it, the duplication.
Sure. Yes, I am agreeable to that.
Okay,
I am as well. I think I seconded that. So
okay, thanks. So motion on the floor is to remove duplicate listings, which are MTP Transit Project List numbers 13 through 17. This is accepting the change recommended by the TAC. Brief for transit to remove these lines. So any objections to this motion? Hearing none. The motion to remove project list numbers 13 to 17 is approved.
Potentially, we might have time to deal with the Alaska Railroad items as well.
Yes. Let's do that. Perhaps this time
Motion in the right
in
order.
what, Mr. Young and Ellen, can you remind us a quick overview and then we can go to public comment?
Yes.
Say these changes are needed, just briefly.
So at the Technical Advisory Committee, the Alaska Railroad did speak up that there were some changes that they would like to make to the projects that you see in the memo before you. I believe they were unable to provide them to us in a time because it was last minute. Everything's been crazy. We understand that. So at the meeting, they had a discussion you see here, zeroing out project costs for line 2, project on line 2. That's the Alaska Railroad number 2 project. Preventative maintenance 5307. I'm just trying to increase the cost for projects on line 6. That is the fleet improvement support. Oh, oops, sorry, I'm on the wrong one. I'm on the transit one. I need to do this. Project 6, the bridge rehabilitation 5307. Decrease the cost for project on line 10, which is the preventative maintenance 5337. Decrease the cost for project on line 11, which is bridge rehabilitation 5337. And then remove projects on 14 and 15 for the facility rehab 5337 and the railroad technology infrastructure 5337. So those were all recommendations that came forward from the Alaska Railroad Corporation itself, and the Technical Advisory Committee recommended approval. Thank you.
And thank you. Any public comment?
You do have a hand up, Jay Norris.
Okay, Mr. Norris? Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, Jason Norris again, South Anchorage. No dispute with these items. I would just like to note that if at any point the Alaska Railroad would like to, engage in some kind of transportation for Alaskans, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any others? Okay. With that, do we have a motion?
To incorporate these changes 1 through 6 on the policy memo into the MTP.
Second.
And I do have a question. Mr. Young-Nailan, can you elaborate for us just a little bit as to the zeroing out of the preventive maintenance 5307? Do you happen to know the rationale for that change?
No, I do not, and I'm not sure if somebody from the railroad is online at this point to be able to provide that information or not. I'm sorry, it's been a little bit since we talked about it, and I don't remember. I don't see anybody on for it.
Yes, is anyone from the railroad on? I know typically Brian Lindemood does attend when he can.
Just one note that it does raise my eyebrows a little bit when we talk about removing 14.5 million from preventive maintenance projects on the railroad. I would assume that the railroad has reasons for wanting this project cost zeroed out. I think I'm not clear, if this is a fiscal constraint question or if there's funds reallocated elsewhere. So I think having that question answered at some point would be really helpful to understand why there's 14.5 million leaving the MTP for preventive maintenance.
I could offer some comment just in my experience in working with the railroad as they send us their program of projects for the STIP. They do have a statewide programmatic project bucket, preventative maintenance, and where they spend the funds just shifts on the particular project that they have at the time. So some would be within the boundaries, some outside, and then their schedule waxes and wanes with where those needs are at. So that these projects are kind of ongoing, and they do the best that they can to forecast how much is needed at any one time. So I just say that these are the same project and program lists that they have on all of the MPOs as well as the STIP. And then they try to portion it out where they think they may need it at the time. But sometimes they're more reactive needs. So like our payment and bridge preservation, we try not to identify larger projects, but just able to take care of those needs as they arise. So,
okay,
but we should request an update.
Yes, I can ask the railroad to provide information and we can provide that to the committee members. There's always an opportunity to change this at a later date. So it's down.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to presume to know things about railroad operations.
happy to go with our recommendations here, but it would be helpful to understand what that preventive maintenance. I do note that the source funding is the 2023 to the 26 tip, so I'm wondering if this is funds that are being moved around a different way. But yeah, I would love to know that if we could get that. Okay, thank you. No further questions or comments from me.
Well, at this point, are there any objections to the motion on the floor, which is incorporating changes item 1 through 6 in the Alaska Railroad Corporation section of the MTP3? So any objections? Hearing none, the direction to staff is to please make the changes as suggested by the TAC. And also please reach out to the railroad for just an informational item.
We can get that and send it to email to you all, so you have that.
Okay.
May I ask a procedural question of staff?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So for one of the items that came up at the last policy committee meeting with the non-motorized plan was item number 6 on the brief, which was sort of a wholesale shift of projects from short-term to long-term to accommodate the Hyder pedestrian boulevard project. I'm wondering from staff perspective if a member has an alternate proposal for how we might accommodate the Hyder project without sort of wholesale removing these particular lines. Would it be appropriate to send that information through staff to the rest of the committee in advance so that everyone can sort of consider a forthcoming amendment, or is that something that a member would need to do in a meeting?
I think it wouldn't be a problem as long as there was no discussion in the email. So it would just be for informational purposes only from staff, that this is something for a future discussion for you to be aware of, so you can come in preparation of this one. If we get it in time, we can actually provide it as part of the agenda to post it.
Okay.
If a committee member can provide it to us, so then the public can see it as well. That would be my big concern, is the public wouldn't have an opportunity to see it. So if we can get it from the member, we can post it to the agenda today. Like it's today, like as soon as we're done. With this meeting,
Okay. Like now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that might be really good for the other committee members to see, because it is kind of a nebulous, move all these out and it frees up room and it's a little more challenging.
Right, of course. Okay, yeah, I wanted to give folks plenty of time to be able to consider alternatives. Okay, great, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, well, with 5 minutes remaining, do any of the committee members see a quick motion on any of these items that we'd like to make before closing?
I don't either. I think everything is going to be a bit. Do we do public participation?
Yeah, typically at the end of each meeting before we close, there is an opportunity for public comments, general public. If there's enough.
Excellent. So going back to our original agenda, just want to I note that we do not have any informational items as part of this agenda. So with that, I'd like to go to the committee first. Are there any closing comments from the committee members? Member Boland, Member Frank, if you have any comments, please go for it.
Nothing from me. Thank you, Chair.
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Let's go to the public then. Any comments from the public? Okay. Anyone online that we're missing?
Nope, don't see anybody.
Great. So with that, let's adjourn until we pick up again on the 15th, 1:30, 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock
15th, 2 o'clock,
in this room.
same place.
Not time.
All right, thanks everyone for
Thank you.
bearing with us on the procedural nuances of this.